Hi guys, my name is Giselle Gonzalez and this is my family history project. Going back to the year of 1999, there are many stories that have remained untold. Today I will be sharing a story about the Afghanistan War that had touched many of people's lives, including my Uncle Frank, a former Marine who had served in this war, whose journey to Afghanistan affected him forever. Before we start, here are a few things you may want to know about this war. The country of Afghanistan is also known as the Wounded Land, and it was a very long and complicated conflict that has lasted for more than 20 years between the United States and Afghanistan. A big event that struck this war to become more serious was the 9/11 attack in 2001 that happened in New York. After this, the United States and their allies came together and invaded Afghanistan, hoping to remove the Taliban, which is what has been protecting the groups who were responsible for the attacks. The main goal of attacking Afghanistan was to not start war, but to show what they did was wrong and to stop terrorism. Over the years of the United States, we wanted to rebuild the country, and many countries started to get involved, which had a huge impact on not only Afghan civilians, but all the soldiers who fought there. Among many men and women who answered the call duty to fight, my uncle was one of the men of strength and vulnerability. My Uncle Frank was born and raised in Oxnard, California in the year of 1978, which makes him 47 years old. Growing up in a small town where everybody knows each other was very different for him, but he eventually ended up loving it. My Uncle Frank was a very easygoing person that always had a smile on his face. Ever since he was little, he always looked for fun things and like pranking his cousins or just doing something silly in general. He was a very big family man, not only with his parents and siblings, but his cousins as well. They all grew up together. My uncle is a very genuine person and made sure people knew that they could always turn to him whenever they needed something. He always had a smile on his face, bringing warmth and laughter to anyone he knew. The change after he came back from the war was very difficult for his family and friends. It's sad to say, but it felt as if they lost it in some way, knowing the challenges and things he experienced for the past years. In this project, I will be explaining what he faced and struggled when fighting for our country. In the early 2000s, Afghanistan came to be a focal point in a global struggle. Many things changed, including the military operations that included complex challenges and deep-seated human cause. This war was a significant convergence of grief, global politics, and the quest for Afghans and Americans for stability. It was a chaotic period of time where my uncle swept himself into events that not only changed the course of his life, but also the lives of those he held dear, where he may have done something that he didn't want to do.
There are those who suggest that Afghanistan is another Vietnam. They argue that it cannot be stabilized, and we're better off cutting our losses and rapidly withdrawing. I believe this argument depends on a false reading of history. Unlike Vietnam, we are joined by a broad coalition of 43 nations that recognizes the legitimacy of our action.
Even considering the fact of going to war, you must have a huge sense of responsibility. My uncle, like many others, felt the need to stand up in a time of national need and fight for our country. The decision was obviously not made easily, but everyone who made the decision to go was built with courage, loyalty, and the belief that the sacrifice you're facing might help secure a better future. The beauty of Afghan will always lie in the world belie its danger. It feels so demoralizing that a beautiful country like this became a place of hurt and horror. Every day was a battle here, not just by the enemy, but the face of anxiety, fear, and growing sense of isolation. For my uncle, every day he would fight, there would be acts of bravery and moments later that later on haunt him forever. There were obviously things that he did that he wished he never would have to do or experience, but this is a part of the bravery he had to face in front of the enemies and his fellow Marines in the combat. My Uncle Frank was one of the people who drove the tanks, so he was an armored crew member. With having the responsibility of this job, he faced constant threat of death, which is extremely traumatizing. Witnessing all of these things up close and being basically responsible for inflicting harm can leave lots of PTSD and psychological scars. True cost of war, other than feeling that accomplishment to work you put in, is often the measured scars that are invisible. My uncle's mind was left grappling with memories made of chaos and endless fear that refused to fade from his brain. The silent battle of PTSD is something people face daily that can shift your personality, your reactions to things, and even just how you see yourself as a person. Feeling as if you can't live with yourself or forgive yourself for something you had done while in the war. Once where you felt normal, transform into hating loud noises, crowded rooms, or just certain smells that can suddenly feel overwhelming to you now. A big thing that my Uncle Frank had experienced when he came back was the detachment from the people he loves. We noticed that he would struggle with anger or guilt, constantly being on edge with things, and just cautious all the time, always feeling that danger is around the corner. He always stood out in family photos with the face of distress and the hidden smile he had. The hardest part of it was that we really never knew what was going on and knew that it was a battle he had himself that he handled with silence in his day-to-day life. And that is what many people don't understand. How was he when he came back from the war?
Different. His smile wasn't the same. You could tell that he went through a lot and he saw a lot. And of course he was upset that he had to get discharged. And then he was going through personal things too with, his second marriage. Well, he went through 2 divorces and then he met his new wife now. And so he had to move. He moved to another state. He moved far away from the family because he couldn't be around us much. He just couldn't talk about it. It was not allowed. So, and I feel being around family, especially to his close siblings and his cousins, like me, like it was hard for him to see us and not talk about it. So I feel like that's what made him move to Michigan. But yeah.
Taken together, I am very happy that my Uncle Frank allowed me to share his story with you. Doing this project was very important to me in learning not only more about my Uncle Frank, but also the Afghanistan war itself. Finding out new information about how much damage this war really caused made me realize that it's not only damaging to all the people who served in the war, but for the Afghan people watching their homes and lives being destroyed. Thousands of civilians lost their lives and millions were displaced within those years. Generations in that country were born into knowing only violence. This time in history showed resilience, strength of the innocent Afghan people continue to hope, learn, and survive through chaos and heartbreak. Documenting my Uncle Frank's experience helped me persevere with a piece of living history that will never be forgotten in my family. It also opened my eyes for a deeper understanding of the physical and emotional toll that it takes on people who serve and fight for the country. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my story.